Okay, so what I'm going to do, I will just summarize the topics. I know you have comprehensive notes on most of the things I'll be talking about. So I may not consider them just like the way you wrote them last time, but I will definitely touch the important parts of that note. So we started looking at introduction to CorelDRAW. Introduction to CorelDRAW. Under that topic, we discuss the definition of CorelDRAW. In the course of defining CorelDRAW, we took time to explain different types of graphics and be able to identify what type of graphics can actually be done with CorelDRAW. So I told us that CorelDRAW is one of the most used and the multi-purpose graphics application software, which focus more on what we call graphics using shapes. Because I told you that we have another graphic design application, which is Photoshop, just to differentiate the focus of these two different graphics application software. I said CorelDRAW focus on shape graphics, that is using shape for illustration. And I also mentioned that the field of graphic design is a field that requires creativity. So every graphic designer needs to be creative. So I said CorelDRAW is just a tool that helps us to actualize our creativity. So for the fact that you know CorelDRAW at times may not guarantee you being a creative person. So there are two different things. The only thing is that when someone is training you like this, he or she, if he's an expert, will be at some point demonstrating some creativity which you can develop and start building yourself from. So the next thing we looked at was how do we open the CorelDRAW once it has been installed in our system. I said once you have installed it, you have to either access it through an icon. If you have an icon on your graphical user interface like this, just like I have the icon here now, I can just double click on it. But there was an advice I gave to us that in case you are using a trial version or a crack version, a crack version means you do not or you did not obtain the license from Corel Corporation. Probably you use some code to break through it. So if you are using that version, you are advised not to start it after you have started your internet. So it's either you access it through an icon representation like this, or you go through the start button and then you search for the program. So these are other ways you can access CorelDRAW. Now, the first time you are launching it, you will be prompted to an interface like this, which I describe as the get started environment of CorelDRAW. What does that mean? It means an interface, a kind of preliminary stage that you access so that you'll be able to specify the kind of environment you want to work on. So when it brings you here, you have the privilege of either opening some of your recent designs, if you have done any design before now. But if you have not, then you have to set up a new working environment. You have to set up a new working environment. So, but there are some icons that may be useful to you as well, if only you have explored them. So if I click here, it's going to prompt me a working environment. That is some of the presets. So I can say, okay, I want to work with this workspace, or I want to work with this workspace. So these are different workspace depending on the version you are running. So that is how to go about the get started interface. So the next thing I taught us is how you can set up a new document. A document in this context is talking about the intended working environment where you would like to perform your design, which can also be referred to as the publication page. So CorelDRAW require that you, at the point of entry, you need to give it an idea of the kind of environment you would like to have so that it can prepare it for you just like that. So once you click on the new tab, which is this, it will open up a new document tab. So this is a dialog box where you can actually state your working environment parameters. For example, the first one is the name. The name can be described according to what you want to design. For example, if I want to design maybe flyer, I can say, okay, this document, I'm setting it up for a flyer. Then coming to where you have preset destination. Preset destination. So this is talking about where will this new document be outputted. So we have different preset destinations by CorelDRAW. So it is not less for you, but as beginner, even as professional, we use this default most time. Or you can just even stay on what? Custom. Custom means you want to customize it. You want to create it to your own tastes, the way you want it. If you select default, it means that some of the settings that CorelDRAW must have put in place, you are going to definitely inherit them. So if I click here, for example, I am selecting default CorelDRAW setting, which has already pre-programmed paper size to be letter, and this is the width, and the units to be what? Inches. But if I select custom, it will not give me an avenue of tampering with some of this. I can say, okay, what I want to design, I don't want it to be designed on letter. I want it to be designed on A4. And then the units, I don't want to design with millimeter, neither what? Inches. I want to design with pixel, because at the end of my design will be converted to an image. And one of the best formats to save your final design is pixel, which means a format for reading images. Now, this is the equivalent A4 in pixel measuring unit. So here you specify the orientation. I said the orientation simply means the placement, the shape of your design, whether it's going to be vertical shape objects or horizontal shape objects. So the flyer you want to design, would you like it to be a kind of a horizontal shape? You switched from this to this. So you either stay on this or you stay on this. But most flyers are usually designed on this. But there are factors that you look into as a graphic designer to know whether you are to use landscape or portrait. So just to give us a hint on one of the factors you should consider to influence whether you are to use this or this is where the name of the company is long. For example, now, if I am going to design a flyer and the name is this long name, let's say hippopotamus, you can see how long that name. Now, if you put it here, sometimes you have to break it into two. You have to break it. Now, but if it is a very short name, let's say what? Tech, there might not be need. So you have to look at the content and be able to suggest the best layout or orientation for presenting it. So that is how to work with selection of orientation. Now, coming to where you have numbers of pages. So this is where you are expected to specify how many pages do you want to have as you set up this. But however, you can always modify, you can always add more even after this whole exercise. So you can decide to go with one. Once you have set up the environment, there will be a place under here where you can always add more pages. So the next thing is where you can choose your color mode. Now your color mode is very important. This is where you can have the set of colors you will be able to access. And most time, this color mode will determine how heavy the content will be. So you can actually work with any of them, but by default, it's already set on this, which is one of the best formats for color mode. Now, rendering resolution. So rendering resolution is talking about how sharp the design will be. And this is something you should always prioritize when you want to embark on a design job. You should always consider how sharp, because most time when you design with a very low resolution, that is the kind of design that after printing it out, you see that the standard will drop. Then you start blaming the printer, that the printer machine is not clear, the color changes. Look at my design. My design is full red. How come after printing, the red dropped to something similar to red? So they'll start all those arguments, forgetting that at times it's from the designer that did not set the right resolution. So it's very key that you consider that. So the way it was is that the lower the number, the higher the resolution. You should always take note of that. So if you are printing large format printing, I believe you understand what I mean by large format printing, all these printing of flyers that are very big, that they normally use a plotter machine to print. Okay, so you have to use a very high resolution because the design is, the length is high. So you just have to consider that. So the DPI means depth per inches. That is what it represents. So there are other settings that you can take advantage of if you want, but I do normally set the default, which are also good for some of the standard. You can also check your description if there's anything useful. So once you are done with this session, you click on what? Okay. So once you click OK, that will now officially walk us into a working space of Corel. So you can see now I have set up, and here it's telling me custom because that was what I picked while I was setting up my peradventure. For any reason, I want to switch from that custom to any unique or globally known paper size, I can tap on the drop down and then switch. So that is for that. And then you can see that the unit is in what? In pixel that you specify. And then you can also, peradventure, after setting up, you discover that you don't want to use pixel. You can click here and also switch back to any of your desire. And like I mentioned before, when you were setting up, you specify one page. After getting here, you now discover that you are publishing a book that will probably span into 20 to 30 pages. So, and you want to create them down before you start your design. So you can click here, click here, click here, click here to add more pages. So you can see that what I've been able to add as many pages that I want to add. I believe you are following, man.
Yes.
All right. So the next topic that we discuss after setting up the CorelDRAW workspace is familiarizing ourselves with the various components that form the CorelDRAW environment. And that topic was CorelDRAW interface / features identification. So that is the next topic I'm going to talk about now. So what do we mean by CorelDRAW interface? I started by telling us that all application software will always provide users an interface to manage them. And the rule for learning apps is for you to understand the environment before you start exploring the available features within that application. So a practical or a scenario that I used was if you are taken to a place, let's say a city, let's say a country that you have not been to, you will agree with me that you spend some time to understand the way things are done in that country or in that environment before you can start actually, doing things like they do. So the same thing. So I'm assuming that I just brought you from Microsoft Word, from Excel, PowerPoint, to a different city called CorelDRAW. So I will not assume that the same way we were familiar with Microsoft Word environment, the same way we should in CorelDRAW, because there are two different words, interface entirely. So I want to spend some time to highlight, to explain, to identify different parts that makes up this application. What is the benefits? What do I stand to gain by knowing the section? One, it gives you more confidence. Whenever you find yourself here, you will always work with certain confidence that you are familiar with the environment. So this is CorelDRAW environment or CorelDRAW windows. And like I said before, the window is broken into different parts. And we want to spend some time to identify these parts. The first part I want to identify is this part that I'm navigating at. So the whole of this part is called the application title bar. And on the application title bar, there are certain information a user of this app is expected to see through it. One, the name of the program you are running, which is currently displaying here. Two, to know the version of CorelDRAW you are running. Currently, the version is what? S8, which I said it means 2018 version. We have S5, 2015 version. We have S6. So remember, I gave all the history then that CorelDRAW started from maybe CorelDRAW 8.0. And it grew from that to CorelDRAW 9.0, 10.0, 11.0, 12.0. And then when it got to 13, instead of saying CorelDRAW 13.0, started with what? X. So the X there represents extended version. That is from the old version. They develop it. Now, and the advice I give is that for the fact that you are learning with S8 does not mean that if they give you 2019, you cannot handle it. As the name implies, extended, it means that what everything in this one will still be in what? The new version, but they will just add one or two things. Now, another information I am getting through the application title bar is the the system architecture compatibility version. I told us then that our Windows has two structures. Our Windows, I'm talking about Windows 11, Windows 10 that we are using, has two structures. And the structures are 32 bits and what? 64 bits. So 64 bits is just like the double of what? 32 bits. That is why systems that are running 64 bits are usually faster than systems running 32 bits. Now, the difference is the data passage, data processing volume. Now, the next information I can see here is the next information I can see here is the name of my design. You can see this was the name we typed when we were setting up the workspace flyer. And then finally, these are other information I can see on the application title bar, which are called the control buttons. And I told us that these control buttons helps us to navigate, to control the entire CorelDRAW interface. For instance, this one is when you have an account with CorelDRAW, and then you can register or log in as verified user. Then here is to minimize from all the way from MS Word. I don't have to explain the meaning of what minimize. You should know that already. You should know also what is called what restore down and maximize, and then of course the close. The advice is that whatever you are drawing, make sure that what you have saved it before you click on what this button. So that is all to the next section. I've just identified the application title bar. So the next section is the menu bar or the tab bar. So the whole of this section where you have this list of menus is called the tab bar. So it's a section that constitute or contain or assemble different menus. And I told us that these menus are like different containers where you have different instructions or command that could be used to influence your design when you start your design. So how do we know some of the things that are inside this menu? If you click on this, you see that what? These are the items inside file. These are the items inside edit. These are the items inside view. These are items inside layout, object, effect, bitmap, text, layout table, tools, window, and help. So all these are useful depending on the project or the challenge at hand that will determine which of them you are to consult as solution. I hope you are still following me.
Yes.
All right. So that is for the tabs. Now, the key tabs that you must understand most of the command under them are file, edit, layout, object, effects, bitmap, and text. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are very important. It is almost impossible that you work in CorelDRAW without coming to objects, without coming to file, without coming to layout, without coming to effects. It's almost impossible. And without coming to what? Text. That is why I highlighted them as some of the most important tabs. Now, the next section is this, which talks about, this section is called the standard toolbar. The standard toolbar. Please, if your video can be stable a little bit to be better. So the whole of this is called the standard toolbar. So the standard toolbar is actually programmed to display command shortcuts. For example, instead of me going to file to select this new, I can access the icon from the standard toolbar. This is the icon here. I want to set up a new document for another design. Let's say ID card. Let me bypass all this and click. So I've set up what? A new document. So I can be switching from one to another, even while I'm still designing them. I just click here. Instead of me going to File and selecting New, so I took advantage of what? The shortcut on the standard toolbar. There's another icon, Open. Instead of me going to File to select Open, I can access it here. Another one, Save. Instead of me going to File, selecting what? Save. So there are so many of them. When you hover on them, you will see them. Like here, this is for grid line. You just want to activate some vertical and horizontal line so that you can easily trace out a required object. Like I did the other time, you can also come to this place and zoom the way you see the entire workspace. So I'm also exploring the shortcut. So you can roll the middle button if you are using the standard mouse just to expand the space between the cell. Now, the reason why I activated this line may be that there is a shape I want to trace. Let's say I come to any of these two, and then the points will help me to what? To outline that shape. The point. That might be the reason. Then come back to, then I can always go back and turn them off. And then before then, I must have gotten the shape I am looking for. So all these are shortcuts. So you can also go to like view and then come to grid, and then you select what? Document grid to add it. And then it is your percentage that makes it so you can fit, and then turn off the entire environment. Let's say, let me check if I still have my grid active or not. So I still have my grid active, so I can turn it off. Then I can go back and say, okay, under grid, I still have my document grid active, so I can click here to turn it off. Okay, so that is just to explain some of the information you can access through the standard toolbar. So you can go on and on and on. Now, the next section is called the properties bar, which I said is very, very important. Each time we are exploring the function of a tool in CorelDRAW, we observe what is happening on the property bar. For example, if I click on this tool, the content have changed. So from here, let me create an object. For example, I create an object, and then let's say I give it color. Yes, I give it color, and then this object, I want to zoom it. I want to make it bigger without physically increasing or without increasing the actual size, just the viewing side, the viewing size. So what I will do, I'll just click here. When it brings out all this, I have this one to continue what? Reducing the viewing size. I have this one to continue what? Increasing the viewing size. I have this one that have been programmed to a certain percentage. Once I click on it, I have this one to another percentage. I have this to another percentage. I have this to another percentage. So all this came out because I selected a tool called Zoom tool. If I click here now, another set of what? So for every tool you are working with, you are advised to take note of the extra functions that are displayed on the properties bar. So the next section was this section where I'm exploring the tools. It's called the tools box. So this is where all the CorelDRAW creativity tools are assembled. You want to create a cycle, you come here. You want to create a rectangle, you come here. And then we are still going to talk about that. Now, I also mentioned if I want to curve the corners, like I was saying, trying to exploit more options on the party bar. If I want to curve the corner, I have to come to somewhere here, this place. If this key is locked, if I try increasing, all the corners will be affected. Okay, the key is not locked, so it's open. So once I lock it and I go back, all the corners will be curving at the same time. So like I said, so you can see the modification that just happened now, just, using the extended function on the property bar. That is why it says very important. I can just convert it to this shape. You can see these are some already made structure that you can access. This is the one I was programming. After that, I have to click here to just, then you can manually increase it. So depending on what you are looking for. I hope you are still following.
Yes.
Okay, so now I want to show us something. I copy this object. What I did is I just click on it and drag with my left button if I'm using mouse. Before I drop, I right click. That is how I duplicated that object. Now, there is something I want to show us here. So let's say I add, just to differentiate the size. So let's say I add this here. And then I group both of them together, highlight all the objects, and then you see icon coming up here. This one say combine, and this one to make them what? One. For example, I want something like this. Now, I want it to flip. I want this side to come here, while this side to come here. So I added this so that when it's flipped, we'll see the differences. So this is the focus object. Right now, it's flipped to my right-hand side. I want to flip it to my left-hand side. So this is what I want to explain, these two commands. So if I select mirror horizontally, look at it. You see it? I've just changed it now. If I click again, I'll change it. If I click again, I'll change it. Then if I select mirror vertically, you can see it. This one up and down. So all this is just to show you that truly, anytime you are on a tool, there are more commands you can access through the property bar. Okay, so the next section we talk about is the color palette. The color palette. The color palette is the whole of this section where you have different solid color. Remember, I told us that in graphic design, we have three colors that you should be aware of. We have the solid. Solid is where you fill an object, the entire object, with one color. So like now, this is what? Solid color. Now I say gradient is where you start mixing one or two solid to form a fill. So in that case, I said you cannot get gradient from here. These ones are for one color. For gradient, you have to go to another tool. You have to go to two. And the best way I showed you that day was that because we are here to explain from the top to the bottom. So for that, I use a logic where I told us that you see this represent the outline, the boundary of this object. Why this represent the inside of this object. So if I want to fill the inside color with yellow and red, this is what I should double click, if you can still remember. So I just double click on it. Then after that, remember that we selected this option. These are different color palettes. Some will allow you to access solid color, while other will allow you to access creative color. Remember, we play around all this. Now, for two colors that we want to achieve, so coming back to this, then remember that day I click here and then I pick a color also. Let's say this. Then after that, I pick this and then I also pick a color. Let's say this. So you can see I have gotten what? A fill. Gotten a fill. Now, the next thing was we talk about maybe you want to transparent, you have one of it to be more on one side. You can see how if I want more of the black on one side, I will drag it. You can see that I have the higher part of the black. So once you have done that, you click OK. So that is one way. Then we'll talk about texture color. Texture color from that same place. You saw how this is where you have texture color, design color. And then once you click, you have your object fill with that pattern. Okay, so the next section I explained to us was the printable area, Remember, I told us that the whole of this section is called what? The printable area. So the printable area defines as item that can be accessed by your office printer. For other printer like Plotter, they have their own setting, which is different from what? This one is only for when you are printing with all this A4 printer, not for other special or industrial printer. Those will have their own application for setting it. Now, if you want to print this and it's outside the printable area, just for us to find out that CorelDRAW does not, your printer only recognize just this section. Any other thing outside it will not be recognized by your printer. So how do I check that? You go to File and then you select what? Print. Let's say we want to do print preview. And then you say what? No object to print or export. So you can see it. So let me deselect the object and go back and say what? Print. Is print preview even on? No. So let me put it inside here and go back and try print preview. You can see that what? It's able to find what? An object. But that time it was saying that what? It cannot find an object because it was not within it. So you can come back here and click to return back to your publication page. Okay, so the next thing I explained to us was this section, which I tag the status bar. And I told us that the status bar display information about the objects selected. For example, I want to know the color given to this object. You can see that what? You can find it here. You want to know the line color given to the object boundary. This is it here. If I double click here now, I will now be able to also change it maybe to another color. If I want, click there, I have changed it. If I want to see it very well, then I will just come here and then increase the line thickness. I can, if I want a thickness, I'll use the highest on the list, but yet I have not gotten the desired thickness. What will I do? I will now manually type. I want 50. And then you press enter to implement it. Do you understand that? Where you want to use a value that is not here, you simply select one, then impute your own, leave the unit, just type the number and then hit enter. If I want to increase to 100, I'll just say 100, press enter. So you see it now. Okay, so I can form a very creative design with this. I can just come here and then do something like this. Okay, so now the next thing is I want to know the type of shape it is. You can see it here, ellipse on layer. So there are so many information. Once you tap an object, it what? Outputs the properties of that object on the status bar. So that is how I came to the end of CorelDRAW interface explanation. So the next topic was where we started learning what? The tools. CorelDRAW what? Tools, if you still remember. So do you have any questions before I also start that journey briefly?
Somehow, no. The question I wanted to ask you before, if we can, the settings of the interface before working with it, whether you can set it permanently. But as you are teaching, I now understand that you can always change it if
Yes,
need
yes,
be.
yes. Okay, so let's quickly talk about CorelDRAW tools. And the topic is Introduction to CorelDRAW Tools Understanding. Now, I said the standard of learning programs like this, you start by knowing the functions of some of the tools or all the tools before you start applying them. So what we are doing is that we are spending some time to understand the individual functions of the tools, after which we start applying them for different designing. That will make it easier for you to understand. So let me start with the first one here, which is called the pick tool. So as the name implies, the pick tool can actually pick objects from one place to another. But instead of taking it this way, I'm going to say the pick tool can actually solve 5 different designing problems. So what do I mean by that? What I meant is there could be 5 different challenges a designer could be facing that pick tool can provide solution for. For example, you can see that this particular object, from what I just explained now, is going outside what? The printable area. So it means that I shouldn't send this to the printer. If I send this to the printer will use its own initiative and cut off what? The whole of this section. Except that is how I want that place to lap. So I can creatively place it like this, deliberately, so that the printer will cut it and end up what? Merging this edge. That is an option. But if that is not the case, it means that you have to readjust this object. So the question is that which of these two will you use to adjust it? That is where pick tool comes in. So I can say, okay, I want to reduce 2 of them at once. So I will just highlight both of them. Either push it from here like this. But if I push it like this, I will discover that what the object is not properly what? Presented.
It's going to Val.
So I'll take it back. I'll say, okay, let me take this one out like this. And then this one, maybe I can reduce it uniformly from here. I can end up having something like this. So you can see I have been able to solve an overflowing problem with what? The pick tool. What exactly the pick tool did for me? It helped me to move the object, move. So that is one of the function of pick tool for moving object from one place to what? Another. Another key function of the pick tool is to resize object with the help of these icons attached to an object, which are referred to as the node. So for instance, if I want to increase this object, I can use the what? The pick tool, staying on one of the node and easily what? Achieve that. Now, but I noticed that as I was increasing, it was actually increasing on one side. Now, I want to increase uniformly. So when you want increment that have to be uniform, you hold down the shift button on your keyboard. You see, as I'm increasing, is increasing equally on all sides. Are you following? But if I remove my hand from my shift button on my keyboard now, look at this, it's only increasing on one direction. So you just have to know all this technique. Now, before you stop the movement, if I want to duplicate it, that is, I want to have 3 cycles. The one I am seeing its shadow, and the yellow one, and the other color. So how do I do that? Before I am, at this moment, I am still holding down the left button on my mouse. I am also still holding down the shift button on the keyboard. So if I want to duplicate it, I will just press the right button of my mouse. So, but remember that I was saying that in case it does not work, you can simply achieve this by coming to what? Edit, and then you select what? Then the only thing you do is that you reduce this one a little. It's there. The other one is there. You can see it. So if I click here now and change this one color, and then what I will do is to send it to the back of this one. So watch out a challenge you can face. So what I want is that I want this one to go to the back of this one, but not the back of this one. So how do you have this kind? So that this one will act as if it's inside this one. That is what, well, each time I place this, it covers it. So how do I achieve this? It's called order. Order means what? You want to prioritize how your objects should be arranged. So like I said, the type of order I want is that I want this one to go to the back of this one, but not to the back of this one. So to achieve that, this is what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do, I'll go to Object. From here, I'll select Order. I will not say back of the page. If I select this, look at it, to go to the back of all of them. Now, if I go back to the object and I select order, if I select what? To the back of the layer, it will go to the back of what? This one. Now, go back to the order, then select behind. Can you see this option? This is the option I use. Behind. Now, but before you use that behind, make sure that you are seeing part of the one you want it to go behind. Because, good, because after selecting it like this, behind, it will ask you to select the object you want it to go to it behind. So if you are not seeing this, you won't see any object to select. That is why I move it out. Now I can select this. So now if I move this out like this, you can see what I have now. This is exactly what I'm looking for. This is what I am looking for. So that is another function of the pick tool for resizing. The second function of the pick tool was to skew or to rotate an object. And for you to skew or to rotate an object, you need to select the pick tool twice. You need to select the pick tool and click on the object twice. For example, I'll click here, the first one, then it will activate another set of icons. So from here, these ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, they are actually for rotating. You click and tilt your hand. Now, why these ones are for skewing, which means to change the perspective, the viewing perspective. And then I just right click as I was rotating it, as I was skewing. Maybe after getting what I want, I just right click in order to create another object. So I can have something like this as a shape I want to use for illustration. So these are the various functions of pick tool. Now, let me talk briefly on this. So what we are going to do, since this is the first time we are coming back from the long holiday, I will make the class a kind of brief, and then tomorrow I will also continue with the revision until I get to where we have to start a new topic. So now I want to quickly talk about just one tool here, and then we end it here, which is called shape tool. Shape tool. So what is the function of the shape tool? The shape tool, as the name implies, is for reconstructing objects, changing the shape of objects. For example, this is a circular or oval shape, and I want to change it to something else as a way of, demonstrating some creativity or achieving a logo. So how do I do that? Now, I said when you are using the shape tool, there are certain principles you need to follow. One, if the shape tool is used on default shape that you did not manually sketch, this shape, we cannot actually claim that we manually sketch this shape. We just simply click on preset tool and then drag it up, and then the shape came up. So we are not the one that sketch it manually. So anytime you want to use the shape tool on such a default shape, the rule says that you must convert it to curve. And I said to convert object to curve, it means you want to, the object is currently seen as one. That is where it has been grouped. Then when you convert to curve, it means you are separating the axis so that you can work on one of them without affecting the other axis. So, for example, without convert to curve, if I drag this, look at what is happening. You can see what is happening. It's affecting the whole object just by dragging this. I can bring this one back. I can bring this one back. That can even be a logo. But what I want is that I just want this place to come down without dragging this other side. So for that reason, I need to go to Objects and select what? Convert to Curve. So once I've done that, if I go back now, watch now, you can see that what? I am able to what? To take an axis without affecting other side. So I can double click to add another node. I can double click to add another node until I get what I'm looking for. So that is, it could be a square shape like this. Just a minute. So it could be a square shape. It could be a square shape like this. And then I want to probably convert it to a triangle. This is an object with 4 sides, and I want to switch it towards an object with just 3 sides. So if I go to the shape tool now, before converting to curve, and I drag, look at what I can get. All the corners are curving. Are you following? All the corners are curving at the same time. So this saved me from unlocking this place and what I was doing the other time, if my intention is to curve all the corners. But my intention is to curve only one side, diagonally. I want only here to curve, and I want only here to curve without affecting here, neither what here. So what do? That is when I will use a logic. Right now, all these corners are shaded. You can see they are given what? Inside color. So I will just click, select one of them. So select one of them. And once you click on one of them, you see that what other end, they are no longer what? Shaded. Can you see it? So now if you drag this one, it will curve only this. Then if I come back here and click here and take it in, it will also what? Curve only this. But that is not what I want to achieve. Now, if I want to change this to a triangle before we come to an end of this section, if I want to change this to a triangle, I cannot achieve it with just using this. I have to go and convert it to what? Curve. Now, I will just delete one of the nodes. To delete node, I said you just simply double click. So you can see that what? You have switched this object from a rectangle, a rectangle to what? A triangle.
Triangle.
So after converting to curve, I can even add node, and that's okay. I want it to go like this. I can add another node here. I say I want it to go up like this. Can add another node here. So you can see that once you convert to curve, you can now have the freedom to be able to what? To maneuver the shape. Any question? This is where
Under what did you get the curve? Under what? It's under effect.
Now I click on the shape tool after selecting the object. Then I went to what? Object. Under object, you will see it if you have not implemented it. Right now it's not active because we have already used it. Do you understand it?
Yes.
So what I want you to do as your assignment, by tomorrow morning, I want to see all these things, just like the way, so all this is, it means that when you watch the video, when I'm doing this, you are doing it. When I'm doing this, you are doing it. When I'm doing this, you are doing this. So at the end of the day, I should be able to have an environment like this. Save it. Save it. Tomorrow you open it and share it. That is how I will confirm that you have touched all the tools and have also applied all the techniques. Preparation for tomorrow class.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow morning.